Welcome to the LDHR Podcast, where ministry leaders grow together. In this series, Across the Ages, we are taking a deeper look at the staff life cycle, how people across generations perceive it, and the expectations they have for the 6 phases: recruitment, application, onboarding, development, retention, and separation. Diving into each aspect, we hope to uncover what each generation craves to be truly known, needed, and have a future within the organization. We have 4 amazing panelists from 4 different generations to help us identify general principles while providing practical steps that those in LDHR can implement immediately in their various contexts. In this second episode, we will explore the application and onboarding aspects of a staff member's journey. We're so glad you're here. First impressions aren't just about recruitment or an interview. It also comes through kind of the application and the onboarding process. So what feels impersonal maybe to one generation might feel really efficient and helpful to another. And so it's kind of that question of how do we meet everyone where they're at? So what do you guys think? What makes an application process feel fair and respectful to you?
Well, I'll just start by saying I knew there was one. Like if you're going to join staff, you have to apply. But I'm coming from the days of paper and snail mail. And so the biggest thing for me was wondering if I was qualified. And it wasn't, the process maybe wasn't so publicized as you might be able to see it, let's say online or something like that now. But for me, understanding the qualifications that were necessary to join, to at least get me into it, to have a paper application and fill it out. For me, understanding everybody was going to fill out that same application was helpful. Like, this is standard. And then in my era, communication about next steps was all snail mail or landlines, and so the timeliness of it seemed like a lot longer process than what people might have these days. But the thing that was necessary was understanding, to Jeff's earlier point, you have to apply by a certain time in order to have an answer about this training, which is in my season only occurring in the summers. So yeah, it was slower, it was paper, but some of the same things are needed. Is it standardized? Is it clear?
I think as well, you want to know that you are being understood in the process as an applicant, and you want to know the organization you're joining. And so that needs to be sort of strongly incorporated. I just remember a time when we had somebody who was thinking of joining the student ministry in the north of England. When we were there, that applicant came and stayed with us a couple of days, actually. She was applying from outside any kind of experience with us and came to join us. We kind of got to know, it was like an informal interview, even though we weren't interviewing her, but got to know her and then could be a reference for her. And she later did join, and she had a great contribution to the ministry. So I think that being understood and, thinking of maybe even creative ways of feeling like they know you. And of course, this lady was able to see our heart and see the culture by staying with us and seeing a little bit of the ministry of what we were doing and deciding for herself whether she felt called to join us. So I think when you've got somebody coming in cold and not really having a frame of reference for who we are, then you have to work a little bit harder in that process. It needs to be a little bit of a flexible process to make it fair, whether this person is the right fit for what they're applying for.
One of the things I appreciate about the application that I filled out was that the theological questions, like, did I actually align with the beliefs? And then the follow-up when I was interviewed along those lines, if there was anything that wasn't clear. So that thing that you're saying, Jeff, about understanding the organization and being understood by the organization, I would reinforce that. That happened, and it's important that it does.
Daria, when you were speaking about how it was and how you experienced it years ago, I think Latin America and the Caribbean, I can still see some of that as we're, so many of our countries, it's a much smaller context. And so people capacity to standardizing the application process may be lacking in many places. I think of things that we would love to see become better. First of all, a better communication with our applicants. I really enjoy the application process and especially the interview. I think so much comes out from that. And I would love for, more than just two people to be able to experience that. And I think that it's also fair to both the applicant and the reviewers to be able to have just a broader or share in the process more as staff team. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I was young staff, one of the first thing you did was you did your core training, right? The next thing you did was learn how to do a staff interview because every staff was expected to participate in that. And I found it extremely valuable. Jeff, you mentioned earlier, like the discipleship process. What are we looking for? I could see some of those areas in my disciples that might need, if they had aspirations towards staff, that might need development before they applied. So it was one of the ways that I think in the years of a lot of growth in the US, that the application process became scalable, was to be able to have everyday staff help with the application process through that kind of interview.
I'm taking notes here as we're talking. I love it.
One of the questions I can remember is, I think the very last question for the interview team that you had to write up on the debrief of the interview was, would you like this person on your team? Why or why not? And, it felt like a responsibility as a staff member that you're contributing to, the development of our overall staff and workforce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, the application process, I actually kept an hour. So I thought I can complete the application within an hour. But it really took me 5 days. I really felt it's like an open heart surgery because the first page is so easy. It's like, what's your name? Where are you from? That is very easy. But again, with Gen Z mind, it is very hard for us to give our personal details. And it's like a kind of pressure. I felt why they are asking our personal if I'm working again, but it took time for me to understand why the application is that much, why it went too long and taking my personal details. Now I think here everything is very connected in this application process. It reflects in my job. Whereas in other jobs, it's nothing to do with my personal life. But here, transparency, I felt that the more transparent I am, I can be more joyfully working on the field because they will help me with my personal life and then they will help me with my theological improvement. So I think the beginning it is little pressure as a new staff joining and also from other culture joining. I felt, man, they need to, when I'm filling, I thought they need to change the application. It is that I think 50 years back application. They should not ask this many personal questions, but it took time for me to understand. I even asked my leaders, hey, why they are asking personal questions? Why they want to go too personal? That is none of their business. But the leaders explained us why it will be useful for us to know our transparency.
That's fascinating. I've learned something today, and I just really provoking that thought that when we're making disciples is about vulnerability. It's about sharing your life. You want the professionalism, going back to that question, professionalism of the organization. You've got a job to do, a role to do. People depend on you. That, actually it's about living lives that are influencing others, sharing our lives with each other and showing how I follow Christ with my money, with my time, with my friendships, with what I'm reading, watching, all of that kind of stuff. And so there is a vulnerability that is built into the application process that I hadn't really thought much about, but it reflects the culture that we're trying to build with disciple making.
Yeah. I liked your line. I think you said, the more transparent I was, the more joyful I am able to be in my current role. it sounds like it was a hurdle for you to kind of jump over of like, oh yeah, why am I answering all of these? But it really actually had an impact for you understanding the culture, but then even setting you up well to do the role that you're serving in. So I'm going to ask a question. How important do you feel that an organization's website is? And what are you looking for in a website?
I do feel it's important, and especially with those who are looking to join the organization today, younger than I. But I think what stays the same is, do I know what are you about? Can I have a place there?
And I think, it's wider social media point as well, who you're wanting to recruit. If it's the Gen Zs, if it's the Gordons and others, is it TikTok? Is it, all these other platforms? Have you got a presence there? And what are you communicating through that? I think a website, when you're looking for a job or something, maybe LinkedIn, places like that. But when you're trying to get the measure of an organization, a website is probably the first place you're looking. And to have a website that is really clear on vision and focus, that, there's the culture is coming through your branding, your marketing of yourself, to put it crudely, but that sort of presenting yourself to the world. Yeah. How clear is your vision? How obvious is it that your love for God is central and the impact you want to have is seeing, the extension of the kingdom and the part you have to play in it? And I mean, we're having our website overhauled in the UK right now, and just recognizing that's a key tool for us that's not really been working for us. But what can we put on there that not just attractive? We want to draw people in that resonate with the vision and see the kind of impact that we're trying to have and see the impact we are having. So I was just thinking, maybe we need video testimonies of the impact we're having, or just this is obvious that from the stories we tell, what we're about.
I do think even for a boomer, the visuals have to be attention grabbing, because there's a lot competing for attention. So I think good visuals that I would look for: what is the mission? What are the values? What is the scope of ministry? Like, is it this country? Is it international? Is it global? And who is the audience that they're trying to reach? Like all of those specifics. And then if there are opportunities to serve, what are they? And to the extent that it's possible to say geographically, what is it? That's interesting to me. And I like when they have their leadership on the website. I like taking a look at that.
I think website definitely plays a major role. And even for today's on-campus Bible studies, many students are coming only through the advertisements we give on Instagram and Facebooks. No more phone calls, no more texts. They see that, and if the details are clear, so and so room on campus, so students are attracted and coming to our Bible studies through our Instagram pages and Facebooks. Not no more text. So I think we should develop a good website which attracts and which gives information and also details of campuses, where and which campus, who is the staff. I think such details will help the students who are coming abroad from other countries, or who are inside the country.
Great. Those are really helpful, everyone. So it sounds like a website is an important piece to this. It maybe is that professional side that really supports the personal that we've also talked a lot about. But moving past kind of the application, we kind of an onboarding season for people joining your organization. And so what makes you feel accepted or that you belong when you join a new team or a new organization?
Yeah, I think I was saying earlier about to do a chance to step up and that involvement. I think you feel seen and valued. I remember when in my first year, I was given the role to take on a debate in the student context, and various other people couldn't do the debate who were more senior staff. And I was debating the head of the Humanist Society in the UK. And so that here I am as a 23-year-old kind of in the deep end. But it was just amazing to be asked, as I reflect back on it. It was one of the hardest things I think I've ever had to do, standing in front of 200 people debating the resurrection. And yeah, I felt valued by that involvement. So there's something I've learned about giving people a chance. And even being asked for your opinion as well. I think that your opinion matters to the freshmen, the newbies on the team. What do you think? And just, being heard in team meetings or in planning or whatever it might be.
What an experience, Jeff. Way to rise to the occasion.
I mean, you present Josh McDowell's stuff and you win the debate. So in some ways, I shouldn't have been quite as nervous as I was, but it was, the context was quite challenging.
It's a great faith step for a new staff. Hello. I mean, it's a big one. I like that you mentioned, the opportunity to be involved in that your opinion matters. I would add to that hospitality, like being included in things, maybe meals or fun together. I remember showing up on one campus assignment, and the couple I was serving with were big Scrabble players. And it was one of the very first things that we did, and it just became a routine, literally, and a team bonding moment, actually, over time. But it was their willingness to kind of invite you into their thing and to be a part of it.
I think something that I have really appreciated on a new team I had joined was a kind of we are all learners attitude and approach. And it just gave me freedom to be okay with not knowing everything or anything. But it just felt like we're in it together, and it's okay that you're not the expert. And there's, all of us together, all our heads together, we can be experts together. Sort of, when you don't know something, lean on your teammate. And that was just life-changing for me, and that communicated to me safe space. And besides things that you all have already said, to be given opportunities and trusted, and that kind of we're all learning together approach was super powerful to me, and something that I will always use moving forward in any leadership that I have.
Yeah.
I think belonging is the concept for all generations. I remember one professor said in this way that belonging comes first, then only after believing. So someone wants to believe you or believe what you say, they first need to feel belong. So whether it's a team or with students, I see that first we need to create a culture or an atmosphere of belonging, then believing comes.
That's great. Thank you, everyone. I find it interesting. You all jumped to that team dynamic, whether it was like a team leader entrusting you with something or taking that posture of like, come join us, we belong together, or we're learning in this together. Do you guys have anything to add maybe for kind of that organizational level that an organization could do to kind of help make people feel welcome and on board? Or do you feel that it really does happen on that local team level?
I think there are national opportunities as well, aren't there? There are things like staff conferences or retreats, and on that level, people recognizing involvement, that your part you can play in not just your local team, but something beyond that. But I think, visits, more senior staff and coming to see what you're doing and taking an interest and even coming to stay. I remember my wife and I were quite early on married, and our national director came to see us. Yeah, it was great that he could spend time with us. And at the end of the meal, he kind of got up and went and did the dishes and just felt so valued. Here's somebody, he's serving us as the national team leader, but he's also serving us in our home, sort of sat with me about sort of that servant leadership, but also the value that he placed on us as fairly new staff.
I had an interesting experience about a month into after my arrival on assignment. I didn't know I had walked into a situation where my director and his wife were having a really difficult time with the assignment. My trainer knew all of that, and they couldn't talk about it. So I was on my own a lot that first month and struggling. And we had one of those visits from the next level leadership, Jeff, that came, but mine went a little differently, perhaps, than yours, because the conversation was, Andrea, are you aware that there are expectations for new staff in evangelism? And I was like, well, no. And she goes, okay, I thought maybe that was so. And she goes, well, here's what we expect, and here's what you are currently doing. And I was, the expectation was 10 contacts a week. I was doing 4. And she just looked at me and in the next breath said, if I were you, I would need some way to think about that to make it doable. And she goes, so let's talk about that. And kind of had a whole coaching conversation. But that feedback made me realize here's somebody who's committed to me doing the best job I can do and is willing to help me do it. And there's nothing like that to be done in that spirit of encouragement and empathy, but giving practical training that so motivated me. Like it changed how I saw my role on campus after that. I saw it later too. Like when I was in a more senior level of leadership, if you show up where people live and work and see what they do and are just able to affirm the things that the Lord is doing through them, even the most confident, competent leaders need encouragement. And I think that's one thing organizational leaders need to pay attention to. It's like, how do I affirm what's happening for people who are on the front lines and in the back room, for that matter, for those who are in the capacity roles who often go unseen.
And those of us who are, our love language is words, that's important to be able to communicate appreciation of people regularly. A meaningful appreciation. You feel seen by somebody noticing something you're doing and recognizing your gifts or even your challenges, the things that you're struggling with.
I really appreciate crew doing 2 years back a cohort gathering, all the regional staff coming together and meeting each other, and they're saying the organization is taking care of us and taking us to a nice place. So this kind of cohort gatherings or Crew 2025 last year, it really gave us a revival or encouragement the way organization is taking care of us, the leadership team.
Thanks for listening in. What great insights our panelists had today. What did you hear that prompted you to re-examine or adjust the way you conduct your application and onboarding processes? Please post your thoughts and questions in our WorkVivo Global LDHR community or comment on this episode. Next week, we'll hear the conclusion of the series as our panelists discuss the staff life cycle phases of development, retention, and separation. See you next week.